Ray Weathers had everything as a child. His father, Rain, was rich, strikingly rich. Gold-seated toilets rich, and a 3-story mansion were at the tips of Ray's little fingers, and he received anything he wanted, whether that be a pony or an albino tiger with one blue eye. His father would go to any length to give his precious son what he wanted. At least his father thought he received everything he wanted. Secretly, Ray was longing for a mother figure in his life. Ever since he was 5, his mother had disappeared out of his life, and his father refused to bring up a topic about her. So, every night before bed, young Ray would sit on his expensive silk sheets and say a silent prayer to wherever his mom may be. Most kids may be bitter about a parent leaving, but Ray only hoped the best of things for his mother. Every night, hope became harder and harder to reach, and by his 7th birthday, Ray decided it wasn't worth the loss of hope. So, he decided he wouldn't continue to pray. But on that day, his father walked into his room with a woman wrapped around his rich arms. A woman that was just of Ray's depiction, but it wasn't his mother. It was his father's new girlfriend, Poppy. Ray tried not to show the massive smile on his face, but no strength in his muscles could keep it from forming. With no words, Ray ran up to the woman he had never met and hugged her. She smiled gently and laughed slightly, not knowing what to do. So she lightly patted his back and turned the small affection into a large, warm hug, just as Ray had dreamed he would one day feel. Months later, his father and new stepmother got married, but she wasn't stepmom to Ray. She was mom. A year later, Ray began to pray for something else. A little sister. Not a brother, a sister. He was lonely in the endless empty halls. He pleaded his father of what he wished for. Ray received everything he asked for, so only a few weeks later his father and mom sat him down and announced that a little baby girl was growing inside of his mom's tummy. Ray was overjoyed, and the wait was unbearable and felt never-ending. But 9 long months later, Willow Weathers was welcomed into the world, and instantly became Ray's pride and joy and his best friend for life. Growing up, life was perfect for the two. They weren't your normal pair of siblings. They never fought. Not once did they argue. Only love and compassion was shared with one another. Every day was spent together, whether it would be by playing with each other, writing stories and performing plays for their parents, or just cuddling by the fireplace and watching some kooky kids show. They were attached at the hip. As they grew up, things became different, and opinions changed. Preferences were switched, and Ray was becoming older. Willow longed to play with her big brother, her best friend, but the stereotype formed that playing with your little sister wasn't cool. After all, Ray was 19 at this point, and Willow was only 12. They drifted apart, and Ray became mean and aggressive. Willow was heartbroken. Their parents ached to see Ray putting up a barrier towards his little sister when he once wished for her to be in his life every day. Feeling devastated, their parents decided to bring another life into the world, to hopefully spark something within their children and to expand their family. Willow was overcome with excitement, but Ray was bitter. However, time went by, and thus Sky Weathers was born, a look-alike of Willow. But nothing changed for Ray. He distanced himself further from his family and started coming home later and later, each night. He clubbed with friends and started drinking and smoking, creating a terrible role model for his 2 siblings. But he didn't care. He was young, stupid, and unafraid. Years passed and the same thing happened every night. Ray would come home at 4 a.m. wasted. He was becoming the worst child his parents could have imagined. How was he once so sweet, caring, and innocent? Their parents decided they needed a getaway from everything happening in their household, so they left Willow to care for both Sky and Ray, hoping this alone time may change the way things were. But it had been so many years since Ray had shifted personalities. He was 27, Willow had just turned 20, and Sky was only a mere 8 years old. So Rain and Poppy packed up a week's worth of luggage and set off on their private yacht for a much-needed vacation. Willow had planned so many activities for her and Sky to do. At this point, She had given up all hope with her bigger brother, and didn't even try to include him in their sibling bonding time. If he wanted to join, she would let him with open arms. One night, Ray was surprisingly sober and was sitting on the couch watching a football game when someone knocked on the door. Willow looked at Ray. She was playing with Sky, so she gave him a look of, "Go get the door, please." But he sat there unfazed. Willow huffed and trudged to the door, opening it slowly, revealing a tall man that was dressed in a tight police uniform. Of course, she thought the police officer was there for her brother, because this had happened before. So she almost pointed to Ray, who was still aimlessly staring at the TV, unaware of the sheriff on their property. Before Willow could speak, the man walked in and asked everyone in the house to take a seat. Sky and Willow obeyed. Ray disobeyed, continued watching the TV. Willow respectively turned it off, which gifted her a glare from her older brother. Without any words spoken from the children, the police officer announced that their parents were missing. Their yacht was found capsized in the middle of the ocean, and their remains were nowhere to be found. Automatic tears filled Willow and Sky's eyes. Ray stood up. He looked the police officer dead in the eyes, and for the first time in years, emotion showed on his face. He cupped his hand over his forehead and silently wept. The officer left, and Ray continued to stand there, his brother and sister on either side of them, truly speechless. During this time of grief, Ray and Willow each went through the process of getting service dogs. Ray was gifted a beautiful Australian Shepherd who he named Stormy, and Willow received a chocolate lab who she respectively named Poppy after her mother. During this time, Sky became very isolated and didn't spend much time with his siblings, who were his care dependents by law now. He didn't show signs of needing any professional help, but the thoughts he kept to himself depicted that he needed serious help. After the painstaking loss of his parents, Sky developed anxiety, but didn't want to bother his siblings with the fact, so he kept quiet and journaled his feelings away. Now that they don't have enough funds to keep their mansion, the three siblings were forced to move to a small boho-decorated house in the middle of Brindleton Bay, in a secluded area right along the waters. It wasn't ideal for them, considering they were raised in luxury, but it was better than being in debt for the rest of their lives. Ray turned himself around once they moved into their house, but he refused to believe his parents were declared dead. So he sat down and told his family he was going to become a storm chaser, so he could truly discover what took his parents from him in the first place. He applied for the job online and was accepted. That sparked a wonderful idea in Willow's mind. She would take after her mother and complete what she never got to do in life. Poppy had plans to become a botanist, but after her marrying Rain, she only focused on her children and never got to achieve her dreams. So that is exactly what Willow planned to do, become a female botanist in honor of her mother. The three are mending themselves together, and although they feel broken at times, Ray and Willow are determined to bring light to the situation and honor their parents in the best way possible by dedicating their careers to them while raising their little brother Sky. Grief, laughs, adventures, and love await this small family.